Blue Mesa is a relatively new perch fishery, and it's a really good one. And we get a lot of questions about, how we consistently stay on and find and catch perch. And a lot of that has to do with your equipment. The first thing we'll kind of go through like rod, reel, lure, but really, at the end of the day, the big key to all your equipment is you really want to find something that's very sensitive. So we often have perch fishermen that talk about coming out and fishing with their ultralight trout gear, little creek rods and stuff, and we like to kind of go a different direction with that. Ultralights are great for putting up a big fight and protecting from pulling hooks free from real fragile mouth fish, but a perch, once you hook it, he's pretty well hooked. It's kind of hard to pull the hook free. So what's more important to me than that, perch fishing, is having an incredibly sensitive rod. So I typically use a medium light to a medium power rod with a fast or extra fast action to it. All graphite, really fast action, pretty long rods that I can get a lot of leverage on with the hook set if I'm casting far out. But really the big thing there is the longer, real fast action rod is going to be very sensitive. The bite from a perch is really light, and you've got to be able to set the hook quick because they bite and spit really quick. So we're going to harp on the sensitivity thing. We prefer spinning gear because it's more efficient at getting little jigs out and letting them fall fast with an open bail. And we'll pair that up with braided line with a fluorocarbon leader. So that's your second part of your real sensitive setup. Braided line along with the fluorocarbon leader is going to keep your whole setup as sensitive as you can get it. Now I typically run somewhere between a 8 to 12 foot leader of fluorocarbon, usually 6 pound. And the reason we use that leader is to keep our actual line that's near the lure invisible to the fish. If I were to tie a lure directly onto this high vis braid, the fish would see it and not bite. And that's the other point about the braid I like. This is real high vis green braid. So when it's laying on the top of the water, I can visually see it. As the lure's tracking down, it'll stop. So I get a real quick visual of when my lure is set on the bottom. And then if it was falling and I'm watching it and a fish bites on the fall, I can actually see that line jump. So you can visually see the bite, and you can visually see when your lure has settled on the bottom, so you're in the right zone. Most of the time we're fishing on the bottom. Now as far as lure selection goes, typical panfish, crappie type lures are really the go-to for perch as well. Our go-to setup is what we call our fin candy, along with our pillhead jig heads. And we'll go like 16th or 8th ounce is pretty standard for a weight. That's still pretty efficient at getting relatively deep, relatively quick, but light enough that it's not just shooting past all the fish as it drops to the bottom too fast. And as far as color selection goes, that's another thing that you just got to kind of play around with. But for the most part, if the water's really clear, these fish are going to want something a little more natural, like your olives and blacks. But they're also very cannibalistic animals, and so it's also a good idea to have a lot of assorted jigs around that are perch color or fire tiger or bright red, something that's really easy for those fish to identify as another perch, and they will eat those just as well. But really, if you want to really concentrate on perch fishing this summer, take a look at your equipment, get yourself set up for the most sensitive equipment you can put yourself around, and that's really going to help you catch a lot more perch. And we hope to see you guys out on the water.